Welcome to Talking Politics. I'm Paul Gable. I'm here with my good friend and co-host John Bond Sr. And today we are entertaining Randal Wallace at the Grecian Delight restaurant in Myrtle Beach. Randal's a Myrtle Beach City Councilman, and we'll be back to talk to him about city politics and the upcoming city election.
Blueberry's Grill is serving up fresh breakfast and lunch daily with locally sourced ingredients. Give your taste buds a treat with our unique twists on your favorite classic foods, like our daily specials or our appetizing omelets, biscuits and gravy with fresh sausage, or our unique sandwiches and burgers. Tour the kitchen where the passion and creativity begins and discover the secret of the delicious ingredients and flawless preparation. Blueberry's Grill, located at 7931 North Kings Highway. Come as a stranger, leave as a friend.
Welcome back. Here we are with Randal Wallace. I think the first thing I'd like to discuss with you is eminent domain.
Yes,
now, let me ask you a question. Two questions, actually. The Chapin Memorial Library, is that city-owned?
It's a city-owned library. It was donated. Chapin and Chapin, the Chapin Memorial Board still has some say over it, but it's a city function. There's city employees. It's a city department head that is the head librarian
that runs it. But is it city owned?
It's yeah. I mean, we own the park and the facility. The Chapin Foundation
owns the library itself, don't they?
They have a say in it because they donated the library. The story of how we ended up with it is it goes back to county government days, and it was a donation by the Chapin Foundation to us,
right? Which
is how we have the library,
right? And
we're the only city in the state that has one.
And the upcoming Children's Museum, is that city owned?
No, that's a private enterprise as far as I know.
So we have a semi-private enterprise, we have a private enterprise, but the city wants to use eminent domain to take properties to build a public building in which these private and semi-private entities will house.
Well, I mean, I think it's not right to call the library a semi-private. I mean, that is a government-run facility. I mean, it's like any other library in the county library system, except the city has it.
Well, no, it's not, because it was never donated by a trust, and there's no trust that has anything to say with a county library.
But this goes back to 1938.
I understand that, but
I mean,
what I'm saying is there is no trust in the county that has a say over the county library
But when
system.
the county government was set up, they were given jurisdiction over libraries.
Yes, they were.
We were exempt from that because this library had existed previous to county government. County government was created in 1977, 78.
So it's grandfathered in.
It was grandfathered in.
It was grandfathered in.
There was another city that had one.
Let me ask you one other question. Is it not true that your former city manager said a few years ago, we ought to turn off the lights, put the keys on the desk, and let the county take the keys if they want it?
He was never a big supporter of us having the library. We have twofold things we're trying to do there. One is to solve the library
But it's the way
issue.
you went about doing it. That's what the people and the public are irritated about. It was alleged that you had a secret realtor looking at some of the properties in downtown, looking to buy it, and then lo and behold, the secret buyer was the city of Myrtle Beach. It's the manner in which you did that, and we can go on other issues. The most prominent one that comes to my mind is that the one on Ocean Boulevard and the poor beachwear owners at that area.
Well, let's settle eminent domain
I'm going to go
first.
on and explore that later. But however, let's stay on this eminent domain issue. Go ahead, Paul.
Well, like I said, we're solving two problems. One was the library, and the facility is older, and we want to keep that building because I do at least because it's a historic building. But moving the facility to the downtown place would allow us to do a lot of upgrades, a new building, a new facility. The libraries do a lot of different things other than just check out library books anymore. And so you got that, but then you've got a real bold initiative to do something to change a part of downtown that is struggling. I mean, I read your columns. You hit us all the time about rising crime rates and problems. We had a lot of issues that were going on in that area, and it's unfortunate because I'm very sympathetic to the two businesses and the two landlord and businesses, and then there's a renter that this involves. But if you look at the rest of the block that was there, it was a very struggling location, and it was willing buyers, a willing buyer and willing sellers. We offered 30% more.
Well, that's the story that goes. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel pretty good about how we've worked with the folks there, and I'm hoping, as far as eminent domain goes, we authorize the manager to be able to do that. But we have told him that we want to come to an agreement with these folks, and we had a long meeting yesterday, an executive session in which that.
So in other words, it's like a club over the owner's head. We got eminent domain that we will use if you don't agree to us in another fashion.
Well, I'd like to look at it as we're working.
I'm sure you would.
We're working to do them, and like I'm not someone who likes the thought of using eminent domain. It's just a philosophical thing with me. But I do think that downtown, especially that area of downtown, we got some other issues on the boulevard, but that area of downtown has all but ceased to function. And the three thriving businesses that were there, other than these two, had created a number of issues. There were a couple of bars there that had been the source of some great issues that were spilling over into other parts of town. I mean, I've had to step up and stand up for the bar owners in this community over and over and over again, saying that you go after and you deal with the trouble spots, not everybody else, because we've got some bars on this end of town and on the south end of town.
And Broadway at the beach.
But Broadway at the beach is a different animal. None of them are open after 2. We've got about 20.
Nevertheless, you got problems, and you got a million policemen in the parking lot at 2 o'clock.
But we have operators here who have never had a police problem. And it was wrong to try to close them at 2 o'clock when their business is very dependent on doing 12 to 4 a.m. business, because we have a huge service industry in this town. And you have to be understanding of that. And the issues that were going on downtown concerning some of this that went on before we did the moratorium had created 3 or 4 attempts by city government to close everybody down at 2. And, I stood up against that because I didn't think it was fair. And you need to deal with the problems, not take it out on some of the other businesses here. And that was some of what had been a huge problem in this downtown area. And like I said, I'm very sympathetic to the owners of the 2 busises.
But you're undertaking too many projects.
We do have a lot going
You're just undertaking. You're going to have the resorting of the field in Myrtle Beach, the football stadium. The bonds are going to be coming up shortly with respect.
Returfing, but
returfing. That's going to be doing
that
returfing.
Turf only lasted less than a decade.
They're planning on doing that. Then they put every place you look. There's a sports complex here in Myrtle Beach. They don't allow the beach to breathe. There's no breathing in the beach. There's no renourishment. They're just building. You got houses all over the place. You're clogging up the streets. You're making it difficult for some beach owner shops to operate. You keep impinging on their business. What more do you want from those poor operators? Now, my good friend Tim Wilkes has a gripe, and he says that, look, he set up a committee that he thought he was going to be working with the city insofar as resolving some of the issues that the city has with beach store owners. He sets it up, he goes to the meeting, and lo and behold, all his hard work goes down the drain. Now, what happened there?
Well,
Can you explain that to us? What
that
happened with respect to that?
There's a lot there to cover.
I understand that, but we have an hour show, so go ahead and start covering it.
Well, I mean, I'll do the beach thing. Of course, as you know, I did not vote about the retailer, the situation that you're referring to about Mr. Wilkes. It was a 5-2 vote, as far as I know, and.
Yeah, but why do you let him go out?
I don't
who
think
lets
it's
him
gone
go
down
out and gets everybody on the same page? He's ready to operate. He feels that there is a resentment and a prejudice against Hebrews, against Israelites, against Jewish people.
I do not believe
that's
true.
His feeling, because most of the beachwear stores. Look, I'm not just casting aspersions out. This is what I hear. I'm just passing it along to you as a representative of all of the people of Myrtle Beach. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I want you to explain it so it's in the satisfaction of everybody's domain.
Well,
let him take a crack at it.
Well, I was going to say that's not reality. What is true is that we are trying to figure out a way to address some situations that are going on Ocean Boulevard. I asked about the committee and tried to help form it, and I voted against it largely because of the decision to go ahead and do first reading without that step in it, because I want folks like Mr. Wilkes and the folks that are in the retail businesses down there and all the businesses down there to feel like they're a part of whatever the solution we end up doing on Ocean Boulevard to deal with the issues that have led to a lot of different things that are happening down there. Council did not agree with that. They voted, the other way to go ahead and do first reading on the ordinance that passed yesterday. But they also ceded that they want the Planning Commission to have this committee and have them look at it and have retail establishment representatives on that committee. And I pushed for that, and I was very pleased to see that the mayor,
in the right direction.
The Mayor Rhodes and Wayne Gray and the rest of council, but those were the two more vocal ones, very much agreed to that in the discussion yesterday.
So now you had first reading, but it's going back to the Planning
It will go
Commission
to the
for
planning-
further study,
for further study.
and we have no
And
idea when second reading's going to come about.
that's true. We don't, and it's not. We're not speeding it along or anything that they want to do, because we insisted on them maybe doing some kind of subcommittee and all that. We don't have a structure for any of this yet.
Right.
But then hopefully the retail folks will, and that's something that I insisted on, have a place at the table so that we can.
But are you
hear what their
satisfied
views-
with what's happening there? Are you satisfied as
obviously
one
I
of the
voted-
councilmen that plays an important role in this project? Are you happy?
Obviously, I voted against it. So
Okay.
I wanted the committee to have that be the route that we went before we passed any kind of law.
Who's opposing it then? Besides you.
I believe Councilman Louder, but
Okay.
I'd
So that
prefer
means the
letting them
mayor
answer,
is
so.
for it. The restrictions insofar as what the
With the mayor,
merchants are supposed to sell and not supposed to sell.
the other
But there's
council
a
people.
First Amendment right there.
But let me tell you, in the mayor's defense, he was very much for this committee, and he very much made it a point at when they voted. They listened to the arguments that made, and then Mike Louder made, and then I think Mr. Wilkes came up and spoke, and there was a couple other folks throughout the process. They listened, and they were willing to do that. But they did go ahead and vote on that. But I think he made it very clear that he wanted there to be a place at the table for the retail merchants down on the boulevard and the other businesses on the boulevard to be a part of whatever solution.
Well,
we do.
isn't that reasonable?
I
Isn't
think
that
so.
reasonable?
I mean,
But why would someone not acknowledge that as not being reasonable?
I
mean, I
you know,
understand
I think
that. He pays his taxes, for God's sake.
I think there is, those folks. We need to build a more trusting relationship with some of the merchants on Ocean Boulevard, and I've been pushing that ever since this stuff happened Easter weekend, because I did not like some of the knee-jerk ideas that came to us from staff. But I do think we're making that effort.
We have to take a 1 minute break.
Randall, we want you to hold that thought for a second.
Okay.
We have to take a break. We'll be back in a moment.
Blueberry's Grill is serving up fresh breakfast and lunch daily with locally sourced ingredients. Give your taste buds a treat with our unique twists on your favorite classic foods, like our daily specials or our appetizing omelets, biscuits and gravy with fresh sausage, or our unique sandwiches and burgers. Tour the kitchen where the passion and creativity begins and discover the secret of the delicious ingredients and flawless preparation. Blueberry's Grill, located at 7931 North Kings Highway. Come as a stranger, leave as a friend.
Welcome back. We're sitting here with Randall talking.
He's on the
about
hot seat. Randall's
talking
on the hot
about
seat.
Ocean
It's definitely
Boulevard. Let me ask you a question. By first reading of that ordinance, the way that ordinance is set up, is there a 12-month clock on it that starts at first reading?
There would be an amortization period that would begin. I think once second reading read. So actually, I think the
Do we
12
know?
months would. My interpretation of it, and I know it's different, Mr. Wilson. I can check to make sure at some point, but I believe that the 12-month part would start once second reading.
Because that's
read.
important. I mean,
it is very important. I understand.
If you've got, if it starts at first reading, the clock, and then you jerk around with the committee, you can jerk around with the committee a long time, subcommittee or whatever, and you can bring it back 8 months later, and all of a sudden there's only 4 months left.
And I believe that it should start at second. I know the doctrine, and I'm trying to think what they call that.
Why don't you check
I
on
will
that?
check on it.
The
but
impending
the
ordinance
doctrine.
But let
It
me
was
ask
not
you a
a
question.
part of this, so it would not, like a moratorium would have been had we passed it. Like, and we did do that with the bars that we were just talking about a minute ago. That was not part of this one, so that
Okay,
clock
can I
should
really
start
put
at
you on the
second.
hot seat?
Should start at second reading.
If we reach second reading of this ordinance, which I believe we will at some point, if it appears in any way, shape, form, or language, not even the impending ordinance doctrine, but just somewhere in the language, it appears to start at first reading. Can we ask you to make an amendment to make sure that it doesn't start till second?
I was opposed to, I voted against it, so yeah, but I would be opposed to starting it based on yesterday, because there's going to be a lot of work that I think is going to need to be done.
I think so.
With the Planning Commission, and I want the folks that are the retailers and all that to be a part of this thing, because whatever we end up doing, we need to be more of a team and have a better relationship down there.
You got to have a better relationship with a lot of people in this town,
and you can't force stuff on people. Change. I hear a lot of folks say, that the businesses down on the boulevard they're a vote no all the time. They're against everything we do. But a lot of times the only things we've asked them to do is either pass a mid, which would raise their taxes, or change the traffic patterns, which would change how they've done business forever, or like the situation with some of the merchandise that they've got. And I think we need to build a better team relationship. And I will have to say that I felt like council moved in that direction despite voting for this yesterday. They really did acquiesce to my request for the retailers to have a part in whatever committee was formed. And, there was an attempt by one to kind of say, well, they can come and speak in front of the Planning Commission. And the mayor stepped up and said, no, that they really needed to be a part. So I think we made that clear in what's going to go to the Planning Commission. Even though, like I said, I voted against it.
All we can do is sit and watch.
But one of the reasons that I was willing to go out on a limb and vote against it, because, this is a vote that could be easily distorted, was I want to make it clear I want these folks to have.
You're afraid that if you get a political opponent, it'll be Randal Wallace supports pornography? Is that what you're saying?
I get that. I get and understand how this game works, but I went out on that limb
because
I want it to be clear to staff and to the commissioners who I have faith in. I want these folks to have a seat at the table, because I think the only way you're ever going to have any kind of us all working together to change what are the problems we got down there is if the merchants feel like they're part of the team. And I want to make them.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I'm not so sure you shouldn't put a permanent subcommittee in there to work with the Planning Commission, because this is one issue of many issues.
But he did something good, Randall.
He did.
He
came here and agreed to be sitting on a hot seat for.
Well, not only that, but also he turned the tide insofar as that one way in Ocean Boulevard, where everybody wanted to have a different traffic pattern with respect to Ocean Boulevard, going from where was it? Ocean Boulevard, 17 North down to what, 6 or so? You wanted all of that to be one way.
Well,
and then you brought some sense to the council and you say, no way, let's not do that. We'll make more of a problem than we'll solve. Isn't that what you did? Or?
Well, it would have been changing it from a 4-lane traffic plan that's in there now to 2 lanes with turn lanes and 2 bike lanes.
We almost tried that with the limo buses a decade ago or more. Maybe it's 13 years.
And that was part of. There was a lot of issues that I had with the way that whole thing developed. It was part of a plan that the manager and the police department brought to us about how to address some issues that they felt.
Well, how did you turn the tide?
Well,
it was a 6-1 for it. Now you turned it against it 6-1.
Well, I don't want to say. I just felt
like.
Well,
you did turn the tide, did you, or did you not?
Well,
did you vote against the original concept?
Well, we didn't vote. We argued.
But you said it was 6-1, wasn't it?
Well, it was very clearly that all of council was in favor of moving that day, and I made the case at that council meeting that, hey, this is one of the biggest issues, and everybody knows it for businesses downtown. And we shouldn't be making this decision in 10 minutes on a Tuesday at 10:30 in the morning at a special meeting that no one knows anything about what we're doing.
That's right.
And then, of course, they showed up later on, most of the business folks, to argue against it, because it was in the morning session of the meeting. And so we continued it until the next week. And in that time, I think the business owners, and they talked to council members, and council members realized, hey, maybe we don't need to move so quickly to have a knee-jerk reaction to what had happened Easter weekend, and I felt like that was a good decision to leave it alone.
That was a smart decision,
and
not only a good one, but a smart one.
Well, because
knee-jerk reactions have been typical of the city council, though. I mean, they really have.
That's not.
And I'm glad to see that maybe we're stopping. I want to ask you something. In this spirit of inclusion, and getting input from business owners, from residents, and what have you, When you guys go to extend the 1 cent local option sales tax, will you put it to a referendum, or are we going to go back to this supermajority voted council again where nobody has a say but 5 members?
Well, you're talking about the tourism development fee.
I am.
The 87% tax.
I'm talking about the no. Look,
tax
you can
cut.
claim that that's a tax cut.
It is to
okay
homeowners in Myrtle Beach.
to 4% homeowners in Myrtle Beach. It does nothing for your 6% properties, and it does nothing for your 10% properties. It is a gift to the Dunes Club and the Grand Dunes and what have you.
Everybody likes to point to the wealthiest. And we got somebody
do
out
you
there
deny that they don't get the best benefit?
My taxes are $650 on my 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath condo
apartment.
And now I pay $150.
Okay.
That does a whole lot for me.
Okay.
Probably more than it does for the wealthiest guy in town who gets a sizable break. But
it's
it
not
helps.
a tax now. It's
actually
a property tax reduction.
It's a tax relief.
So
it's actually
do we give the chamber $20 million a year out of that in fake money,
Hey,
or do
Paul,
they actually get real money?
No, they get $20 million, and they,
So
and,
we
and
are
the
raising
growth,
money
and the
from
growth
somebody,
that you
are
see
we
in
not?
this city, the growth that you have seen in this city over the last 9 years, I think, in my opinion, is a direct result of the tourism development fee. I'm proud of that piece.
Are you aware of the fact that the accommodations tax peaked, collections peaked in 2014? You've been down the last 3 years?
Well, accommodations is not. You have to
All
look
right,
at
so people
overall.
aren't staying in hotel rooms.
The tourism development fee has increased 25% since the day we started it.
It has, but
And-
how much? But it's
and that is
1
a direct
cent on
result-
everything.
But that's right. 1 cent on all,
It's
all
1
the
cent on
economic
what's
activity.
bought in Myrtle Beach by the citizens of Myrtle Beach 365 days a year. Your accommodations tax collections, which is a direct result of what hotel rooms and condos are being.
But you
the
got to
growth in that-
Paul. Let
There
him,
is no
let
growth
him,
in
let
that.
him,
It's
let him
down.
Paul, let him explain himself. I mean,
But there
you
are
Okay,
ask him
all right.
about 7 questions. The poor guy can't answer one. Go ahead, Randall. Try.
There are a lot of
attempt.
factors.
Go ahead,
in
Randall.
the
Go ahead.
accommodations. You need to look at the actual tax itself. 25% growth in that, and you look at the 3 million that have come here since we started that. When we started the tourism development fee we had about 14 million annual visitors. Now they're saying 17.98 million.
When you started the tourism development fee, you were in the midst of the biggest recession this country's ever had.
And therein lies the actual sort of template
You were
that was
going to
used.
have a bounce back when conditions got better.
But the template that was followed was the same as Post and Kellogg's. It was the 2 cereal companies from the Great Depression. One cut their advertising budget. The other one continued to advertise, held their own during the Depression. And when the Depression lifted, I want to say Kellogg's, as best I recall, is the one grew to become the fastest growing cereal company in America. And I think you're looking at even the problems that we have in Myrtle Beach right now are a direct result of the effectiveness of that and the number of tourists that are coming to the area.
Councilman
Well, I'm going to
Wallace,
tell you this. I read those numbers differently, Randall.
Can I interject here? Paul asked you a question. Is it going to a vote to the public, or is the council going to vote on it?
I don't know. We have not discussed
What do you
the
think?
state.
What is your feeling on that?
My feeling is that if it went to a referendum, it'd win. I mean, I think the voters here support it.
So
and
you
I think
don't
see the
mind
results of
going
it.
for a referendum?
I myself have no objections to it.
Yeah,
It's the only 1 cent local option sales tax in the state that's never had a referendum on it.
Well, it was when we enacted it to
Well,
begin
they
with.
may
it was an
change.
emergency.
According to Randall,
It
may
wasn't an
change.
emergency. You could have held a referendum.
Well, it was an emergency measure to keep our economy competitive during the 2009 crash. You forget,
That's
and I was
true.
in the real estate business. I can tell you, 2008 and 9 when that crash happened, the real estate business didn't
you were
slowly
suffering.
decline. It stopped.
Right.
And
Of course
there's a lot
it did,
of that.
because all these bandit companies
But
that
do you
were
know-
putting
do you know,
bogus mortgages out crashed. I mean, you had no money.
But
the
people
economy stopped.
Randall,
and so
Randall,
we do
people
it.
outside of the city that have a zip code of 29577, they also pay the tax.
Well-
so you get people in Carolina Forest, you got people in Saco City
There are
that
complaints of that.
29577. They're paying the tax. They don't get any benefit insofar
well, the city
as
doesn't get any of that either. I mean, that goes
Well,
to the state and then come
well,
back
whatever.
to us.
But the fact remains that they're paying the tax, and so it's discriminatory toward those people that have to pay the tax that don't get any benefit. That's what we're saying.
Well, businesses
So
that are not in the city
consequently,
limits should not be charging that.
Well, my point. Let me develop my point, because they are outside. When you do have a referendum, will you allow people that are in that zip code to 9577. You're shaking your head, Paul. I'm just asking him the question, not you.
Yeah, but you can't have a city referendum and extend it beyond the voting
if they're
precincts
paying
of
the
the city.
tax and they don't have any representation,
But
Paul,
I agree, and
what,
they ought to
what,
get
what
awfully
solution
mad,
we have?
and
Now we have
they
to
don't
go,
have a solution,
We go to
John.
our county council member and say, "Hey, look, we're paying this tax. What do you want them to do?"
But they're not
They can't
supposed
do
to be
it.
paying that tax.
But they are paying
if
the
a business
tax.
outside the city is
People-
charging
people-
that, they're not supposed to be charging it.
I'm in Cameron Crawford's district. Okay, Cameron Crawford is outside of
Yes, sir.
the Myrtle Beach City. Okay, he has a representation of those residents that have a zip code 29577, and they're paying the taxes. So should we burden Cameron Crawford, who has no say in that? Can we burden him and say, "Hey, can you do something about it?" He can't do anything about it. Is that fair to him and fair to his constituents?
It's not.
Of course it's not.
But
And
Randall
that's
is
the
correct
point.
on the point that the businesses that are outside the city limits of Myrtle Beach should not be collecting it.
They should not be charging that.
And why they
But
are?
it's on my phone bill. It's on my cable bill. It's on my water bill. It's on all
Now,
those
how
bills.
does it get there?
I don't
It's
know.
on my
That's-
bill. I asked Roddy Dickinson. He said, "Well, you're 29577. You're in the city of Myrtle Beach." I said, "I'm not in the city of Myrtle. I'm just outside, but I have property in the city of Myrtle Beach. I don't mind paying the taxes there." But what am I supposed to do? Bang on the head of my poor county councilman, Cameron Crawford,
Well, no,
and
he's-
burden him?
He's got
That's
nothing
not
to
fair to
say.
him.
But I think possibly the city should look into this.
We have
Please.
the city has
Please. You
made
know
it
what I
very clear.
heard? You know what I heard? The city loves to collect taxes. They love taxes.
That's not-
Ask Tim Wilkes. He'll tell you. They love tax. 11.5% we pay taxes. 11.5% we go to a restaurant in the city of Myrtle Beach. Not that I'm griping much,
No.
which everybody thinks I'm not telling the truth, but that's how I feel.
The
Randall,
people
we
that
have
are
so
charging
many
that tax,
issues.
if you don't live in the
we
city,
have
they
so
should not
many
be charging
issues,
that.
and
But
we don't
that's
want
a
to
Department
burden.
of Revenue
We can't talk
issue.
over. I'm talking over you. You're
Yes,
talking
sir.
over.
I'm just-
Randall, we have so many issues, and I don't want to burden you. You're one of the finest councilmen I've met because you're out there listening to the complaints of the people, getting badgered, but you stay right there. You stay strong. You answer the questions. That's why everybody admires you.
Well, now
And
Randall
that's why-
just got his 30-second television spot for his campaign.
Yeah, but
and
you
on
gave,
that note,
but you gave his opposition.
On that note,
you
we're
gave
gonna
him his
take-
opposition about.
on that note, we're going to take a break.
Are we done yet?
Welcome back. We're in with our third segment here with poor Randall Wallace. We've fried him so far. Now let's give you a second to tell us what you think are some of the best accomplishments that you've been a part of as a city. You've been a city councilman for what, 4 terms?
Yeah.
And you're running for your 5th.
I'm running. In the fall, we'll be running.
Well, you're not saying you're going to got a decision to make between now and then.
No.
right?
We're all planning on running.
Okay.
The things that I'm proud of that have been accomplished. Well, obviously the tourism development fee. I do think that that has been
Randall.
a boom. The tourism development fee has led to a huge boom in the people that are here and a tax cut.
I thought the outflow.
It's
water
given.
outflow,
It's
I thought
given.
that would-
The ocean outfall.
In and of
That's
itself,
what you
it's given
did well.
$20 million of public funds to a private organization to market for several other large private organizations in this city. And I'm sorry, that's wrong.
That's a tax. A tax. You don't want to talk
it has
about
marketed
taxes.
for the community, and you go anywhere
Oh, come on,
in the areas where they advertise, and you see Myrtle Beach's presence, and you see that working. With
I
folks
got to
that come
tell you
here.
something.
We need a breather.
I got a sister in New Jersey, and I was up there when my parents were still alive after my wife died in 2012 for several periods of time. And I saw our ads that the tourism development fee, not tax, is paying for. And they were branded together. There were 3 ads in a row. It was Orlando, it was Myrtle Beach, it was the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. I was kind of embarrassed by our ads, I'll tell you the truth. I'm not sure that money's being spent anywhere near as well as you think it is.
Well, I mean, the beholder. I think the ads when I've seen them, I travel a pretty good bit. They're TV ads that seem to be working, and I think the proof's in the pudding. You look at the boom here, Easter weekend for all the flaws that we did have. was packed. I mean, the
It
town
always
was
is. Easter's the
absolutely packed.
second biggest holiday that we have.
But it was an unusually large crowd here, even by that standard. And then I think the shoulder seasons are growing. Sports tourism has become, and I'm very proud of the involvement with that. And as you were talking about, we built ball fields and we got the sports complex. And you're seeing at a time when golf began to fade, sports tourism take a bigger role in our economy. And I think that's been a
Golf
huge
began
success.
to fade in 1986. That's when we peaked.
Well,
with golfers in the United States.
but the
Since
real
then, we've been
decline-
on a downhill line.
Well, my dad's in the golf business. My dad was a golf pro here for 20 years, and he was a golf pro in Interior South Carolina for a long time. It has clearly collapsed.
Collapsed is a good word.
Tell us of your
but I would say
accomplishments, Randall.
the 2008,
Randall.
2009.
Yeah,
it
all right.
Randall,
was when
tell
it
us
We
of
have
your
had two
accomplishments.
sides of the tourism development fee.
You only mentioned one.
You and
and
I are
that's
not going to
taxes.
agree on it.
Well,
So
you
go
have
ahead.
So many
Well,
others, Randall.
well, the tourism
Come on,
development fee.
tell us others.
Well, I mean, I was getting
been-
there. Sports tourism has been
That's
a
right.
huge
Okay,
success,
go
and
ahead.
I'm proud of that. I think one of the things that I've been involved with the National League of Cities was getting them to start lobbying for beach
Beach
renourishment,
nourishment, right.
And we did that, and I'm on that Energy, Environment, Natural Resources
Right.
Committee, and I
Go
think
ahead.
that's been an accomplishment. One of the ones I guess that people might take for granted, but it's actually one that you probably see every day. It was the pay before you go to the pump deal, because we had so many drive-offs that were taking a lot of time from our police department, and while that's kind of inconvenient, that actually is one
How
that you
about
see
the
every day.
widening of Third Avenue?
Well, that's a state project, but it's been one that we're glad to see.
What was your
But
input on that?
But
What was your input on that?
Let me just say this: when you talk about what I'm proudest of, it's the things you don't see.
Well, tell us.
I voted against a helmet law that I thought was going to be illegal,
And proved to be so.
I worked just in the last 2 weeks to take up for the oceanfront merchants down here about the three laning of the highway, and I do think that if I have played a role that is unique to myself, it has been to listen to the small business folks and stop or try to stop things that I didn't think were very fair. And I think I can look back over a 14, 15, 16-year period of time. And I think this is true of residents and anything. People have called me, I listened to them, and I've done what I could do to help their situations or keep things from happening. And I hadn't always been successful. I lost the helmet law vote. But it has been successful.
You actually won the helmet law vote. The idiots that voted for it were the ones that were embarrassed ultimately when you had to rescind.
Are you still going to have a construction of the roadways during the summer months where you block up all these traffic and you have
the city,
more and more of a traffic gridlock?
City government.
What are you doing insofar as that's concerned? How are you planning on that?
City government, generally speaking, does not do any of our highway
you got
projects.
you got some city streets are blocked off.
Well,
what do you mean they're not
the
doing
bridge
anything?
up here is a state project.
They're not doing
and
anything?
that is something that I don't quite get why the state.
Well, why can't you tell them? Look, why don't you do it at night? Why don't you do it when there's not traffic? You're blocking traffic.
I understand, but we do what we can there. But it is.
Yeah,
that
but
is
you
a
got to
state
get
project.
more input.
That might have been a case of safety.
But that's your
I do
city.
too.
That's
I
your
really
city,
do.
and you're responsible for the safety of the public and the safety. And when you have gridlock, when they're blocking streets and so forth, and traffic cannot go through, what do? You got to get a handle on it and get after the
Yes, sir. But
state if need be, because you have Mike Rutan right down the block here. You can call, hey Mike, why don't we do something about this?
the city projects that do create traffic issue and
Well,
gridlock
you give it the city,
during the
what
winter
is
time.
it? So
John, I can't make the state
city
do anything.
doesn't do anything. But
nor
you
can the other members
can
of
pressure
council.
them. You could pressure
We
them
do
like
what we can
like the
to
citizens
say, hey,
pressure you.
we
you
have a
pressure
unique
them.
situation here. It doesn't always go on, but like you said, in the case of the bridge over here, it was probably safety had a big part of that. But the ocean outfall projects and the
That was a
burying of
positive.
utility
I mean,
lines,
when it's positive,
who
it's
are
positive. But when
projects
it's
that I'm actually very
not
proud to have been a part of.
necessary,
But they
it's full folly
they
to do
generally
it.
do those projects. They start it sometime after the season slows down in September through the winter, and then we pull up and come back the next year. So keep them on a rotation, so we're not in the middle of the season blocking
What I
traffic.
what I hate to hear is you get the legislators saying, "Oh, the public don't know anything. They're not very smart. Oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about, and so forth."
Well, I don't
give
like
us a
that
little
kind of-
break. Give us a little
the
credit.
public- let me tell you.
We may be aware of what's going on, but unfortunately for us, our legislators don't want to hear it until the time's for election. Now, you want to.
You got that right.
You come right out there. You're right here in the lion's den. You handle yourself admirably, and I have to commend you. Now he says it's another commercial for you, but that's not a commercial. It's an actual fact. You do have public hearings. You do have town hall hearings, Randall. Now, I shouldn't be promoting this. This is what you should be saying. This should be on your agenda to tell the public out there. It shouldn't come from me.
But But I do think, I have a lot of respect.
This isn't
for
Randall and his paid campaign consultant, John Bon Sr.
I'm not.
And let me say this about
Leave Randall alone.
the
He's a good
colleagues that
man.
I serve with, both on the city council, our
My
state house
daughter loves
delegation.
him. My daughter loves Randall, and she's a voter here in the city of Myrtle Beach, and she's out there promoting him every day. She
And I
watches
appreciate
him
it.
on Facebook. He has a good following, Randall, whether you know it or not.
But let me say this
Not
about
only from John Bunting.
but let me say this about my colleagues, both on city council and the state legislature and the county council. They're doing a really good job. I think we have a very good delegation all the way around.
You're absolutely right.
people
Cameron Crawford, who
working.
represents me, is one of the
He's
best,
talking about
nicest.
the state legislative delegation.
Well, he said his county.
Well, the county
He said
too.
County.
I've tried to
and
work
I'm
with the
agreeing
county.
with him about Cameron Crawford.
And let me tell you, we've had some issues that have not been easy to deal with that have led to some strife.
All right, tell us
that I
about
think
before we hang
have-
up. Tell us about the mopeds. He knows I hate mopeds.
Well, we've got a moratorium on them, trying to figure out a way to deal with the number of them. We did talk and end up continuing the vote yesterday, so that because I think there is a feeling that we don't need any more expansion of that business, but the people who are in the business now, we don't need to just stop them in cold when they've got money already invested, and you keep them from expanding. Because if I had $40,000 or whatever invested in my business, and then all of a sudden the city came down like a hammer on them, it would hurt. And
you mean like eminent domain?
But we're but in the case of the mopeds, I'll get back to eminent domain. But in the case of the mopeds, we're looking at a way to be fair about how we're going to deal with this, and not to do an undue burden on the people that are in business already, and just not allow any new ones until we can get a handle on what is the right number. And we did this with taxi cabs years ago when we had so many medallions.
Now you have Uber.
Eminent domain is a situation,
Now you have
and
Uber.
Uber is taking off. Eminent domain is a different situation in that we've got to make some bold moves in that area of downtown.
You have a very good
and I am
position.
very sympathetic to the two owners. I've said that over and over again.
I'm going to
And
tell
we
you,
are working with them because we haven't really
I
used
hear
eminent
about
domain.
these bold moves, and I understand B&C owns the property. But my God, we've had the pavilion site closed and bare for 10 years. We've had the mall site bare and clear for 10 years. Now, they did get to pay off the mall when you guys agreed to buy that other land from them on the grant from the state, but you then got forced into coming up with a plan quick or before the 10th year was up. But that's another whole ball game. We won't go into that.
Initially, we're going to expand the convention center and some things, the economy tank, among other things. The sports tourism thing became a viable alternative. The state agreed to it, and I think that's been a success.
We have 3 minutes, Paul.
Well, it was a success that
Let's see what-
it was
we
a
have 3
success
minutes.
that the B&C got to pay off the mortgage on the mall
But it
so
was
they
a
could
success
tear it
because-
down. Yeah,
because we have the new
we have-
facilities that we
we're
can do.
city
Randall,
money
Randall,
or
Randall,
state
We
money.
have 3 minutes. You ask a question, then I'll ask a question.
No, I'm done. I've been so hard on poor Randall here, and
Randall likes
he's
it.
gotten
He
a lot
enjoys
bigger
it.
than I am, and so you go ahead.
Randall, why do you push everything over to the planning board, who are members that are not represented, more or less, of a good planning? In my opinion, they are not elected officials. You're an elected official. Now you just threw everything into the planning board when you should be tackling the problem that, again, Tim Wilkes presented to you and the board the other day. And I think that he's sitting there and he's saying to himself, I don't know if he is or not, I haven't spoken to him. He's saying, well, why doesn't the city take action? Why are they passing the buck over to the planning? And the people that are sitting there don't have any idea of what he's undergoing and other beachwear stores and other merchants are going through. They just don't know that. Do they go out there and talk to them? They go out there and visit? What do they do? Do you know anything about what they do, Randall, or do you just throw everything over to them?
The planning commission
Get
does
rid
a lot
get
of
rid
really
those problems. Put it over there.
The planning commission does a lot of really hard work. They do
Like
the
what?
in-depth.
Tell me what.
Just a lot of things go in front of
Like
them.
what? Just give me one.
Well, when I voted against it, but we're sending this situation down on the boulevard.
But did
to
you
them to
ask
be-
Tim Wilk and the other merchants? Are they happy with that going over to planning board?
I did, and they said no, and I wasn't happy about it either.
Well,
but
why
we
did they
it.
say
I'm
no?
just-
Do you know why they said no?
But let me
The
just say
question
this
is,
about-
do you know why they said no? If you spoke to them, why would they say no?
I supported their position, John.
But
I mean,
you
I don't
said
know what
you
else I can
spoke
do.
to them, but what did they say when they said no?
Well, I mean, I voted.
You voted for them, but
5-2.
they gave you input, and they must have had some gripe, and they must have presented some
Well, they had
facts
some
to you.
issues
What was
with what we were planning to do.
Well,
and they had a lot of issues with what we were
I'll
planning
tell you
to
what.
do.
In my estimation, my thinking, they have no conception of what they're going through, so they don't
well-
know. They have not come down and they have spoken
and that
to
is-
them.
that
They
is-
have not seen what the problem was. They're just sitting there and making
answer a question.
decisions and passing it over to you, and you say, ah.
And there's your opponent's 30-second campaign spot.
No, but let me just say this: the Planning Commission does
Was
a
I
lot.
fair? That's the important
The Planning Commission does a lot of hard work. They do a
Oh,
lot of the
yeah,
in-depth
okay. All right,
studying
yeah.
before it comes to us with their recommendation. But they're recommending.
Well,
But
you
we
know-
have the.
you know what I
But let me-
heard?
let me- let
You
me
know what
just-
I heard?
but, John, let me
You're
s-
wasting time by going there.
Well,
That's what I heard. I don't know if
and
it's
that's
true or not.
opinion, and
Well, aren't they allowed an opinion?
they are very. It's America.
All right,
Yes,
so
sir.
that's
They're
part of
very
your
much allowed opinion.
constituents. Those are the constituents. That's not me.
But-
this is what I hear.
But the Planning Commission is they that's their duty. They study issues. They in depth. They have the committees. They spend the time doing that. Bring the recommendation to us because we have a wide, and this is one of the problems I think that does exist in government, and one that I've tried in my time to address by listening to people and going and talking to them and having them become, is that we have a wide range of things. One day we could be looking at a PUD downtown. The next thing we're dealing with beachwear issues that had to do with the stores on the boulevard. The next thing we're dealing with mopeds. The next thing
But
we're
you're
doing
it.
sports tourism.
You're saying you're doing. I'm talking about the planning board.
But let me
No.
let me finish the
We only
question,
have-
John.
we only have
One of
30
the problems
seconds left.
one of the problems with
Quick.
government is that there's such a wide range of things that we're doing. A lot of times you make decisions, and then there are ramifications that come up that you've got to do. And that's what it looks like we're
realize that.
incompetent
I
a
know
lot of
that.
times. It looks like everybody goes, God knows how they make a
I
decision
agree with that.
crazy. But I don't know what oceanfront merchants deal with day in and day out because I'm not one. That's why I go listen to them, and that's why I've gone to bat in those issues that have affected them
and you
most
to be
recently.
commended for it.
And I do think that's one of the things that government struggles to correct all the time is that they say, hey, we got to solve this problem, and they go to solve this problem, and then there's a lot of other issues.
The law of unintended consequences.
But
and you've got to react to that.
I want you to know, Randall.
And we do the best we
I really
can.
appreciate all the work you do. I played the devil's advocate today with you, only because of the fact that I hear all of these commentaries that come in, and a lot of people call me and they say, "Can you do something? Can you do something?" And I usually say, "I'll try. I'll try." But let me just say this: you have, in my estimation, a very good police department under Warren Gall. Now, Paul is going to hold his head and
Yep.
and make faces, but that's one man's opinion.
Thank you very much for coming today. Thank you
sir.
for sitting on the hot seat. You did a very fine job.
I think I enjoyed it.
And we'll look forward to what's going to develop with the Ocean Boulevard merchants and what have you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm Paul Gable, and we're done.
Bye-bye.
Blueberry's Grill is serving up fresh breakfast and lunch daily with locally sourced ingredients. Give your taste buds a treat with our unique twists on your favorite classic foods, like our daily specials or our appetizing omelets, biscuits and gravy with fresh sausage, or our unique sandwiches and burgers. Tour the kitchen where the passion and creativity begins and discover the secret of the delicious ingredients and flawless preparation. Blueberry's Grill, located at 7931 North Kings Highway. Come as a stranger, leave as a friend.
I'm Randal Wallace. I'm a Myrtle Beach City Councilman, and I spent a day here in the hot seat on the show. And I actually enjoyed it. It's fun to get to go back and forth with some folks and see what people are thinking out there and answer your questions. So I really enjoyed it, and I also recommend the Grecian Delight, who hosted this today. An outstanding restaurant. They got great food, and I've enjoyed it every time I ever come up here, which is pretty frequent.